Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Here I am again. Part three. Can you believe it? Part three. I'm going to kind of round out what I started to say last time. And I hope some of you fellas are looking at my videos. I mean, it's probably not the greatest thing since Metro Golden Mayer or 20th Century Fox, but I'm slowly catching up to the world. I'm trying to get the camera to look at me better. So, like I said before, my tech savviness is not up to par. So, if you got somebody out there, if you got, well, let me finish my statement. If you have somebody out there in TV land, Yahoo land, Twitter land, LinkedIn land, YouTube land, and has good tech savvy, I really would appreciate some support, some help. My email, it's V as in Victor, I as in ice, V as in Victor again, A as in alpha, 783149 in case you want to write something to me. Because I don't know how to set up the chat here. Somebody's saying something, but I don't know what that something is. That's what it says here all the time, saying something. So I don't know if somebody's saying something or not. I don't see anything. Okay, nonetheless, let's look at Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump starts his political career actually getting into politics, interested in politics since he was in that military academy. But also, when he was in college, he got interested, but really got interested in when Abraham Bima or Bimi, Beame, from 1974 to 1977, he was mayor of New York. And then Ed Koch and the Koch brothers got into the action from 1978 to 1989. In addition to those two folks that were very close to Mr. Trump, there was also Mr. Nixon, whom he admired a lot, and he was terribly disappointed and angry that the Watergate scandal. So he has all kinds of baggage, and that's what brought it onto him. It's not really that people didn't like him, but he brought it on himself. I mean, yes, a lot of people, a good number of people, he hit two chords, and he said it himself, and I agree with him. I mean, credit to who credit belongs. Obama was the one who opened the door for him to win. Whether people want to accept it or not, whether Nancy Pelosi wants to accept it or not, whether Schumer wants to accept it or not, whether uh, Kamala Harris wants to accept it or not, or Joe Biden wants to accept it or not, I don't know, whoever wants to accept it or not, but it was Obama who opened the door for him to win. Yeah, period is that. Now, we'll touch base on this later on in the video, hopefully. We have time. We don't have a lot of time, but let's see if we have time to touch on this, or we'll touch on it tomorrow on this subject because it's a very sensitive subject, and I have been close to this subject from my youth when I walk in the freedom marches. So some of the older folks understand what the freedom marches was all about. Maybe some of the younger folks also heard it from their grandmother or their mother about the freedom marches, especially in the black community, also in the white community and the middle ground community. They might have talked about the freedom marches, the Chicano movement with Cesar Chavez and Rosa Maria, I forgot her last name. Uh, it was a big movement. The feminist movement was a big movement. I remember when the women threw the bras into the air. They took it off right out of their chest. They just stripped the bra and threw it up in the air. So it was interesting times. And Johnson, signed the Civil Rights Act, which was a great accomplishment for all these people that I already mentioned. So everybody was in the civil rights movement in one way or another with their own particular group. Now, here comes the itchy part. And here comes where Mr. Trump comes in too. So he has a lot of blame because he's not a solution focused individual. If he was a solution focused individual, he would really be successful. He might have not even ran for president because he was so successful. But he was not successful. I mean, he should accept it. He was not a successful millionaire. I mean, his father inherited him the money. But if my dad or my grandmother or some relative of mine would have inherited me, not even the amount that he got, plus his father got dementia and then died of Alzheimer's, and he took over the company, the what used to be the organization of Fred Trump, and then he named it, he coined it the Trump Organization. And his brother found out, and I mean, it was too late. Brother and sister found out. By then, Trump had thrown the Trump card. I mean, that's not nothing to do with his last, but that's the name of a game of chance. It's kind of like in the poker world, so you can understand. It's kind of like a poker gamut, so to say, and that's what it is. So anyway, going back to the subject matter, he did start in those years, and he kept on climbing. He kept on climbing and kept on digging and digging, going to fundraisers, going to dinners, meeting with politicians, going to sponsoring politicians, hanging out with rollers and high rollers, low rollers, several kinds of rollers. And one of the key things that stand him out, because he's not the only developer in town. I mean, hopefully you guys understand by now that he's not the only developer in town. There's a good number of developers. I mean, it happens to be that the Kushner family, that Jared Kushner got married with his daughter Ivanka. But that's one family that's in the development business. But there's other developers out there who are even more successful than the Kushner family. But leaving those little nuances apart, there's a great number of developers that are very successful, and they have done great deals, and they are not in the financial stress that Trump is in. So that puts perspective into the situation. All these technicalities that he paid 750, he paid 68 million. He was always trying to find loopholes. I mean, that was his gamut for the government, and always going to Senate hearings. He he literally went. I have on tape. As soon as we both Edmund Hollingsworth and myself get a little bit more tech savvy, I'll load the tapes up and show you. I mean, he went to several Senate hearings and congressional hearings to lobby for himself so he could get tax cuts, so he had tax credits, so he can get tax abatements for his projects because he didn't like the other developer who won the bid, and then he got left out, so he had to find a way to get into the game. So he tricked his way into the game and got different tax breaks, so to say. Let's put it that way: tax breaks. Do use that word for double connotation, break in the taxes that he pays and break on the opportunity that he wanted to get into to develop some part of the project. So even if he got the lesser part of the project, he was in the project. He was in the mix. He was going to make some money. So anyway, going the point is that he inherited a lot of money plus the business, so he was swimming in money. So he didn't make. The good news is that he didn't crack the business down to the ground floor. He somehow maintained it to a good level, and scraping here, scraping there, tight here, tight there, cheating here, cheating there, doing double deals, dealing under the table. He managed to survive in many ways. I would say his life is a 60-40. 60 losses, 40 gains. So that's about it. Put it into percentages. 60 losses, losses, 60% losses, 40% gains. So in the overall picture, he did great. Now you take Ross Perot, for example. Ross Perot made money. He did money, good money, through his own personal business, his investments, and working for General Motors. So he did good. The difference between Ross Perot, so now you guys can Google Ross Perot. He ran for president with when Father Bush was running for president. He went on an independent party, but he had some good ideas. He was a person who had focus and had vision. That's where Donald Trump fails. He doesn't have focus. He doesn't have vision. He has ambition, which doesn't actually putting ambition at the top of the food chain doesn't make it the best equation possible for success. And he has this intrinsic desire to be noticeable, to be praised, to be the one. And he is not the one. He's far from being the one. Kushner is not the one either. So cancel him out. He can live in a building with a number 666 or 77 or whatever number you like, 99.9. He is not in the cuspid of the Torah. Simple as that. He can cut his losses and move on. He is not in the cuspid of the Torah. He is less cuspid in the New Testament. So whoever built it in his head or brainwashed him and told him that he was a key player in biblical prophecy, they're dead wrong. Dead wrong. If they get any more wrong, they'll fall off the edge of the earth. Taking into account a book by the name The World is Flat, which is not flat, but anyway, that's the title of the book. So we'll go along with that title and say that the end of the world, like they used to say before Columbus, that it had an edge and people would fall off the edge. We'll use that as an analogy. So I already told you this and he liked Rudy Giuliani, of course, when he was mayor, and Rudy Giuliani, what two things that brought him to fame. It's not that he was a great mayor, but it just happened that he was in the right place at the right time. We can use that as a point of reference for many things, and you guys can take that into account if you happen to be in the right place at the right time. So it doesn't mean a great deal that he wasn't a good mayor, because he was at the right place at the right time. Number one, he managed to get a mob leader, indict him, and put him in prison, and break up the crime syndicate or the crime organization of that particular individual. I think it was Mr. Getty. But that didn't stop the crime organization. That wasn't the only organization that exists till today in New York. There's still a lot of organizations, a good number of organizations that are in New York, LA, Atlanta, Miami, New York. I said New York already. I said Chicago. I already said Chicago, Seattle, Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas. So organizations of that nature still exist and have great links with many things, many people, so to say, even politicians, even the president of the United States, they have linkages with them because they are powerful organizations. So you have organizations also in other parts of the world that are very well structured and very powerful, basically economically powerful. Now you take some of the weaker organizations, some of the small cats, like the one that the what do they call it, Project Python or Operation Python. They wrapped up 600 of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. That's a smokescreen. Maybe they'll catch the leader, maybe they won't. It's a coin in the air. But the root cause of this organization, smaller organizations, exist for a root cause. So that's the part of the equation that hasn't been solved. What is the root cause? What element makes them existable? And that is what makes the whole thing solvable. If you can solve the root cause and you can trace it to the branches, you'll be able to solve the equation and solve the crisis of opioids and drug abuse and drug circulation. But the drug is a big business. I mean, just take Colorado, for example. Colorado legalized marijuana, and that's just a little drug. I mean, that really is not even the tip of the iceberg. That's just an insignificant little drug. But it legalized it, and it's thriving. The businesses that run the marijuana operation are thriving. So people like to get high. No doubt in my mind. I mean, take coffee. How many people drink coffee around the United? I mean, all 50 and territories around or around the world. I mean, you can go to all 200 nations in the world, and you'll find that the coffee is king, and that's a drug. That's caffeine. Coca-Cola has caffeine. Pepsi has caffeine. Big Red has caffeine. Mountain Dew has caffeine. I can go on and on naming all the brands of soft drinks and not quite gaseous drinks that have caffeine in them. Chocolate has caffeine. But so I told you last time in the last video about an experience that I had. So the question still is on the table. What happens to the money they confiscate? What happens to the drugs they confiscate? What happens when they break up an organization of this type? Who carries forward the distribution of all the drugs that already set into play? Because you're talking about an organization, even though it's small, it's an organization that has branches that has well structure in it. And forget about this is a lieutenant, this is a sergeant. The hierarchy level doesn't really matter that much as a network that it has established. That's what has value. The people don't have value. If they're stupid, that's the price they got to pay. They catch them. If they're smart, they don't catch them. I mean, it goes with the like being a weasel. Like Donald Trump. He's a wolf and a weasel and a fox all together in one. He might not be smart, but he's astute. Just like the weasel, just like the fox, just like the wolf. They're astute animals. They're not smart like the German Shepherd. They're not smart like the Rottweiler. No, they're just astute animals, and they don't trust nobody. I mean, just look at the behavior of Trump. So all this behavior pattern, all this insults, all this rhetoric, hate that he spouts out of his mouth has brought a negative connotation on him. He could have turned all this around if he really had leadership qualities, but he has none. A leader never insults his people. A leader never insults the enemy. A leader leads, like the word says, leads, takes head on, makes decisions, takes on responsibilities, is accountable for what he does. He takes responsibility. That's a big thing. Take responsibility. So what happened to Charles Luciano? He didn't take responsibility. So he went down the tube. Not only did the organized crime families threw him under the bus, the government of the United States threw him under the bus, even though he had strong connections in southern Italy, and he helped during the Second World War with the rebels of Italy. He still was thrown under the bus. He was outcasted. He was deported back to Italy, and that's a historical fact. If, if somebody wants to dispute it, we can go straight to the documentary and find out. The FBI files has files on Charles Luciano. Then you got another guy, Charles Ponzi. Now here you got a guy who is really smart. Now this guy's smart. He's got a good head over his shoulders, but in that head, what got in his way? He was too pompous. What does that pompous mean? A lot of people probably listening to me know what pompous means. That means somebody who's egotistical, who's narcissist, who thinks that he's the best of the West, of the East, and the North and the South. Nobody's better than him. Not even God is better than him. So that was the downfall of Charles Ponzi. Because even today, network marketing, what you understand as network marketing, is a spin-off of what Charles Ponzi started from inside the prison. Can you imagine that? He started a network marketing or a Ponzi scheme that they later, the pyramid scheme that they later named it, from inside a prison. That's a fact that you many people don't know. I mean, you gotta sit down and burn the midnight oil to actually gather all this information. And both Edmund Hollingsworth and myself, we both burn the midnight oil. I mean, we do research, we look into this, we have expertise in our own field. So maybe I shouldn't say so. We have expertise in our own field, and we move forward. We don't stop where we ended. No, we continue. We continue to get better. We continue to learn the new things that are coming out in the literature. We contribute as much as we can to the literature to hopefully someday, somehow, get to get to position a new management system, get to position a new leadership uh, operation, get to position a better way of analyzing economics, political economics, policy, politics, social behavior, and of course, the intricate world of religion. That is quite an ordeal to tackle that rabbit hole. And luckily, I feel fortunate that I had the opportunity to jump at that rabbit hole and understand the intricacies of religion. Quite, quite a puzzle. If any of you out there listening to me and want to really dive into putting a puzzle together that is made up of little pieces the size of a keyboard in a laptop, jump in with me. And you'll see how deep the rabbit hole goes and see if you can put the puzzle together. It's not an easy deal, it's not an easy task, but it can be done. There's nothing that can't be done, and there's nothing that can't be unknown, or there's nothing that can't be undiscoverable. Everything has a discovery, and everything can be known. So all this secrecy that Donald Trump carries around him is what makes him an evil man, and what makes him and puts him in an evil connotation, and pushes people to get him away from him. They want to get away from him. They want him to get away from the system. I mean, all these people say, "Oh no, well, Donald Trump's a greatest things in pumpkin pie." I mean, if he wasn't such an asshole and everything else that I've said before, he'll be okay. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, he's got his limitations, but he would acknowledge those limitations just like everybody else did. I mean, you got the Bushy man, you got the Obama guy, you got then you got the Clinton guy, and then you got the other Bushy man and the Reagan man. They all have faults, except they acknowledge their faults and they work with their limitations. This guy doesn't want to work with his limitations because he feels like he has no limitations. He feels like he knows it all, and he bamboozles people And not only that, because I feel bamboozled. Remember, audience, I voted for the guy. I'm a conservative. I'm an independent voter, which makes me different than many of those out there voters who have a party affiliation. I have no party affiliation. I'm independent and I think for myself. So that makes a big difference. And because of that, I do not support Donald Trump. Because of that. Because I can think for myself and I see the faults in him. Now, some of the people puts up all this rhetoric. They say, "Oh no, he has no fault. He has this. He accomplished this. He accomplished that." I ask the question to everybody who's like me. We're an 8 to 5 workers. We work 2 jobs. Some people out there work 3 jobs. How has the policies benefited you people? It hasn't benefited me. I don't see any benefit in what he's doing. I don't see any. I mean, the fracking. How is that helping me? It's not cleaning the air. That's a bunch of bullshit. Fracking is not cleaning the air. It's not making the air better. It's not making the water better because it hurts the underground water. See what happened to the underground waters with all this fracking going on? It's going to poison the waters. And the people from Ohio, the people from Pennsylvania, the people from even here in northern Texas, in Midland, Odessa, where they're fracking, over there in Oklahoma, where they're fracking. He talks about it like if it's the greatest thing since apple pie, and it's not, because that is poisoning the underground water, and the underground water will poison the above water, and then we're in a pickle jar because what happened in Flint, Michigan, is going to be worse than what happened up there in Flint. We're going to be drinking poison because of all the gases, all the oil, all the emissions, all the carbons, all the smoke that goes underground while drilling, while fracking, because they got to drill and frack sideways. It, he doesn't explain it. He thinks he paints it like it's a making a hole. No, it's not making a hole. You got to go crooked down into the side because you got to open up the plaques. In this world that we have, if it continues, if we continue this path, we're going to end up with earthquakes. There's so much tolerance that the earth can take, the layers of the earth, and we're going to end up with earthquakes. I mean, there's already small seismic movement in Yellowstone National Park. Now he says, "Oh, you got to have park management." Yeah, how are you going to control that seismic movement? Park man, you're going to throw a bomb in the hole over there where Old Faithful comes out, and you're going to stop the seismic movement that volcano has there in Yellowstone National Park. Now, yeah, you put a bomb down the hole, and then you're going to make it worse. Cause and effect. Got to think about that. Cause and effect. It's all a balance. It's all a balance. Everything we do in here in this world, our body's a balance, earth is a balance, nature's a balance, everything is a balance. And if we abuse it, we gotta pay the price and we gotta pay the piper. Clean air, I bet you if I put little measuring tools up in the atmosphere, we don't have that clean air that he talks about. And the pollutants out there are getting worse and worse. Just go outside when it rains and taste the water and see if you don't get sick. Back when I was a kid, and think about it, back when I was a kid, I'm 68. So back when I was a kid, that's what, 40 years ago or more, maybe more, 50 years ago, I was a kid living over there in Wyoming. And it would rain and you can drink the water coming down from the rain and you would not get sick. Now, I bet you the people in Wyoming, They open their mouth and let the water come from the sky down, they'll end up sick. They'll end up throwing up and having bad stomach infections. Why? Because the water's no longer in a clean stage that it used to be. So all the water's getting polluted. The rivers are getting polluted. The underground water's getting polluted, and that's what we live on: air and water. Those are the main two factors that gives us the resilience and vitality in our life, our existence. Water, of course, food, but a main ingredient is water. Another main ingredient is the air. So if the people over there in Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, part of Tennessee, part of Pennsylvania, part of Ohio that have mines, Colorado that has coal mines, you're gonna get sick. That's how black lungs come about. So what is Trump doing to help the people take care of their health? I mean, yeah, you got the mines open, and some of the mines are closing as I speak. According to the information I got from Hollingsworth, some of the mines are closing down or downsizing. So A, mines are downsizing. B, you're probably bordering or already sick from black lung disease. You're not in a win-win situation. You're in a lose-lose situation. So all this thing that he says, oh, we're gonna win, we're gonna get tired of winning. Winning what? Winning that we're gonna give up our lives and die? Is that winning? I don't see that winning. Going to hell? Is that winning? I don't think so. Having our family barely make it with barely being able to buy food on the table, being able barely making it to not be evicted from the house that renters have to do? No. Worried that the next job that you're gonna get has to be sweeping floors because there's no jobs. Manufacturing is out the door, and even if manufacturing was beginning to have a rebound, it's not the same. Listen, just for a moment, clear your head and think about this. Manufacturing is slowly transforming. Now, I'm going to throw a Sunday word that probably Donald Trump doesn't like. A new paradigm is happening in the world of manufacturing, in the world of transportation, in the world of service. Because now, how many people have cell phones as opposed to landlines? I would say 90% of the population of the United States has cell phones. And there's few that have landlines. Governments have landlines, some individuals have landlines, but that's about it. Yeah, because landlines, I mean, they're not that expensive. I mean, they got their price, but it's a lot more convenient to carry around a cell phone, especially if it's a smartphone, because you have the convenience not only of chit chatting with people, but you also can be on the internet, can do chats, can do texting. So there's its perks to having a cell phone. And now you're going to have 5G, which is going to make it faster. Whether it's good or bad, it's coming. I mean, you can't stop it. Pastors want to say, "Oh, we got to stop it because 5G is bad." I mean, what are they going to do? They can't do nothing. 5G is coming whether they like it or not, whether they pray or not. 5G is coming, and it's coming around the world, not only here in the United States, but in every country in the world. 5G will be the dominant force coming up. What else is new? Now, before our time runs out, let me give you a quick brief, and we'll continue this topic tomorrow. Let me give you a quick brief on a quick take on the debates. That was one of the main things that I wanted to talk to you about. Okay, the presidential debate. I guess everybody and their grandmother has said it was the most terrible thing they've seen like forever. But then you got to think about that. The debates that Trump had with Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. Uh, I mean, you name it. All those, the Bushy guy. Yeah, all of those people that he debated the same style that he did uh, Joe Biden. He debated Hillary Clinton the same way he did the Bushy man. He debated the same Joe Biden the same way he did Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. Eh, Even Ben Carson, he debated the same way. So it's not exactly something alien to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because he's been the same way. He's at least that part of him is consistent. He he tries to bamboozle the people. He tries to skew the truth. Uh, I have no facts. We haven't found actual factual deals that we can 100% seal it and say it's kosher. That the mayor of Moscow gave $3 million to Hunter Biden, and he talks about a board that he sat on a board for an oil company over there in Ukraine. I mean, if it's a big company like the way they pictured it and the way they were investigating it, that it was a big organization, a big oil company like Shell, a big oil company, or Exxon Mobil, or Valero from here in Texas. I mean, there's no one board. There's at least three boards. I mean, I've been on boards. That's why I know. I've been on boards. And am I an expert on those boards that I was on? No, I wasn't. I was no expert, but I asked the questions. That's what they wanted. They wanted me on those boards because I could ask questions, and I didn't stay quiet, and I contributed with little bits, pieces here, and most importantly, I asked questions to get an explanation, and that's what they wanted. That's what the people on that in those companies wanted. They wanted to hear the questions because those questions meant that they could prepare better for the actual board of directors to take better focus on what they were doing. It's kind of a precursor to doing the final draft. You have this advisory boards, and that's what you do. Advice, whether you know the subject matter or not. You ask the right questions, and that's all they want. The right questions or some questions, and then they'll polish the whole thing, and they come down to the final draft in the board of directors, and that's what it is. And I don't think up to our what we've found, we have not found that he was part. Hunter Biden was part of the board of directors. He was probably part of some board, and of course, companies. The bigger the companies are, the more benefits the board members get. There's for every hour that you sit there, you get $200. I mean, that's not bad for a medium-sized company where I sat on the board of advisors, and I can tell what it was. I mean, I'm talking to you right now. I can't. I don't have to be secretive about it like Trump is. He's secret about everything, which doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense at all. If anybody does research on him, everything he does is based on the past that he's done. There's nothing new in what he does. He talked about al Baghdadi. He wanted to kill al Baghdadi even before he became president. So that's nothing new. So anyway, the presidential debate was a disaster. Maybe Joe Biden came out ahead a couple of points or a nose. If you were talking about the Kentucky Derby, he probably won by a nose. But that's about it. On the Kamala Harris and Mike Pence, outside of the fly that was there and the barking of a dog or some noise sneezing that was on the background, it really didn't matter because both of them dodged bullets. They were good dodgers. But there were two things that Kamala Harris came ahead on. The last question, I think the last question, she nailed it hard. She gave hope. See, that's a key word right there. Remember that word, people who listen to my video, hope. That's very important. So Kamala Harris gave hope to that little girl. that there's a brighter, that there's light at the end of the tunnel. Everything is not a quarrel. Whether we agree to disagree or not agree to disagree, everything is not a quarrel. We should live in peace. We should have a conversation and come to a consensus. That's why the conversations that have consensus come out to a good conclusion. And this is not a bickering match where it's, oh, we got to agree to disagree. Well, that sounds good, but that never ends good. But if you come out and say, "Oh, well, we have a differences," well, we're coming down to a consensus. Now we're going getting somewhere. Now that's getting somewhere. That's really people who have brains. So there were two things that Kamala Harris, or three things, should I say, that Kamala Harris came ahead on on Mike Pence, and that gave her the win. Other than that, they both dodged bullets. They didn't answer the questions that the moderator had. Susan Page. Susan Page was a little bit too mild for my taste. Nonetheless, she tried her best, and that's all we can do. So that, having said that, I hope that brings some perspective to you. And the most important thing that you can do now is vote. Now, some states, now I'm going to go into this topic. This is the last thing I'm talking, and I'll talk to you guys about voting. Some states in the U.S. right now, as we speak, have a history of mail in ballots. They have a history. It's not something new to them. They already were doing it way before Trump, way before Obama, way before Bushy man, and way before many others. They were already doing it. So they have a pattern, they have a system, and they have a way to validate things. And they have a speed up system already set to count the ballots. So they can do mail in voting because they have the experience, they have the know how, they have the system, and they've done it many years already in many occasions. So taking out those states, that it's a workable deal. Now let's take for example, and this is a state that is not known to have what I just said, a system of mail-in voting. But let's take Montana. Montana has few people. I mean, there's no two ways about it. The population of Montana is probably the population of San Antonio, Texas, or the population of the entire state of Iowa. Well, maybe there they go, hand in hand, Montana and Iowa. Probably Montana probably have less population than Iowa. Yet, Montana, because of the low amount of population that they can do mail-in voting and not have this voter fraud, tons of mail, tons of ballots thrown into trash cans. They won't have that. That's a bunch of bullshit of Trump because that state it's a low population state, and the electoral commission knows basically how many people there are, and if they're going to just do the whole state in a mail-in ballot format, they can do it because it's not a big deal. They got what, 2 million people, roughly, give or take, 500,000 here and there. That's no big deal. They can do it. They can do it by precinct, and they can have a good system going, and all the people there are registered, and they have ways to do the affidavit, and they can actually vote by mail, and the mail will be delivered to the office, and they'll have a timely count. I can guarantee you that. I can tell Mr. Trump, here's $10. I bet you they can do it. Now you got other states like New York, like Texas here. Texas is a habit because you got a ton of people here. I mean, you got a ton of people. There's no two ways about it. You got the population here of 3 states, the whole ice corridor, included. You go from Oklahoma all the way to Minnesota, and that's not even. And you got people still not enough people to cover the population in the state of Texas, all those states that you climb on I-35. So Texas is a huge monster. So I urge for all the Texans that hear my video, hopefully there's some people that hear my video, go vote. Go vote to the official voting locations. Don't try to do mail-in voting. Register to do mail-in voting. Do the absentee style voting. But don't break the cycle, because if the people, we the people, want to vote Donald Trump out of the White House, we gotta do it in an orderly fashion. And one of the orderly fashion is to go vote over there and not be intimidated. The thugs that he has, because he has thugs, he pulls he pulls the rank and says, I'm the president and I want these people to go out there and do this, and they'll do it because they're stupid, but they'll do it. Just like they wanted to kidnap Gresham Whitmore, the governor of Michigan. I mean, so he talks about the radical left. What happens to the radical right? What about the radical right? They're bad. I mean, they're worse than the radical left. The radical left is trying to find a solution to problems. The radical right is not looking for a solution to a problem. They are the problem. They create the problem. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. So I'll let you marinate on what I just said. Because radical left versus radical right, there's no comparison. One side tries to find a solution, the other side create the problem. And there's no solution because they don't want to find a solution. Their nature is to create hostility, anger, and hate. So let's move forward on this, people, and try to get a little bit more calibrated on this. We'll talk some more about this. I got Edmund looking at some information, and I'm looking at some information also to see if we can give you better information and more analysis on this, historical perspectives, comments. Sorry that I am not unbiased, but I hate to do this, but I mean, I can only confess that I got bamboozled. And because I got bamboozled, I am no longer supporting going on a neutral route. As an independent voter, I think I have the right and the obligation to understand the problem and to go and find a solution to the problem. So my solution would be Biden, Harris, or the blue wave, however people want to call it, but not Trump. Trump has not been a source of solution. He has been a source of problem and an unsolved issues. And some of the things that he's done, yeah, he's done some good, respectable things, or should I say? He's done some good things, some respectable things, but those respectable things don't amount to nothing when it comes to you and I. I mean, look at yourself. Look, and I look at myself, and you guys look at yourself. Are we better off? Do we have tons of money? Did we get a lot of refunds from our taxes? I mean, under Obama, at least I can testify for myself. I got good refunds for my taxes. Under Trump, I got a minuscule refund for my taxes. So, weigh it out. Like there's something wrong in this picture. Great tax cuts, no tax cuts. Yet we, the working people, we, the blue collar people, that we work from 8 to 5, and some of us have 2 jobs or 3 jobs. At least I got two jobs, and we're still barely making it. We don't have extra cash to put into a piggy bank. We can barely make it on ourselves, more or less put cash in a piggy bank. So let's wrap this up today, and we will continue tomorrow. Hope to God that we'll be here tomorrow. God bless you guys.